الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد، الله الصمد، لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. صلوات.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله وأنه حجة الله صلوات الله عليه. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي، وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي، فأجول في طلبه البلدان، فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران، لا أدري أفي سهل هو أم في جبل، أم في أرض أم في سماء، أم في بر أم في بحر، وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من. وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك، وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله، واجعل يا ربي رزقك لي واسعا، ومطلبه سهلا، ومأخذه قريبا، ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا، فإنك غني عن عذابي، وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله، وجد على عبدك بفضلك، إنك ذو فضل عظيم.
Inshallah, ziyarat will be recited at the end of the program. We will be starting the program tonight with the recitation of Surah Yasin, and following that, it will be the recitation of Surah Rahman. So let us please settle down so that the recitation of the Quran can begin with loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajah. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli.
For the soul of Syed Asad, and for the souls of the oppressed who are facing such harsh situations, and those who are dying, please recite Surah Al-Fatiha after Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم، إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم، تنزيل العزيز الرحيم. لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لتنذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللنا لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى هو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم
بار محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على
Allowed salawat, please. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. Inshallah, we're going to recite Surah Ar-Rahman together. We can all pull out our phones, inshallah. This is it's really a loss if we have the verses of the Quran recited, even if we can't recite the Arabic, it's a loss to simply listen to it and not look at the translation and benefit from the verses of the Quran. This is Surah number 55. So you can pull it up, inshallah. Before we start, a Surah Al-Fatiha for our dear Syed, as well as all of those who have lost their lives in Palestine during these painful days, with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alayhim ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim waladdallin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ar-Rahman علم القرآن خلق الإنسان. Many of these verses are repeated, so inshallah let's all recite it. All recite the surah together. علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسأله من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن فبأي آلاء ربكما سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يرسل عليكما شواظ من نار ونحاس فلا تنتصران فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فإذا انشقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنس ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيؤخذ بالنواصي والأقدام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذواتا أفنان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان تجريان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن قاصرات الطرف لم يتمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كأنهن الياقوت والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ومن دونهما جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مدهامتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان نضاختان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة ونخل ورمان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن خيرات حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما حور مقصورات في الخيام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان لم يتمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على رفرف خضر وعبقري حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان تبارك اسم ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل.
One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I would like to request Sister Rubab Zedi to please recite some poetry with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to apologize for my voice. Like a lot of you, it's been about 28 days since I've been able to sleep properly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant relief to our brothers and sisters in Palestine, and may He grant them liberation. Of course, tonight, I want to offer my deepest condolences to Maulana Asad Jafri's family, his teachers, his students, his loved ones, and the entire community of Toronto. This is a very heavy loss, and Dallas is grieving with you. Among many other things, Maulana Asad Jafri was the epitome of a true lover of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So tonight, in his honor, I want to share a poem that I wrote for the Shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. This is called Victory. If my intellect questioned God, then my heartbeats would refute it. If my intellect questioned God, then my heartbeats would refute it. And if falsehood claimed my heart, my love of Ali would transmute it. And if God speaks to his creation through Ali's hands and Ali's voice, then wilaya is not a question of historicity or choice. For I could search every companion, but I would never find a face that could rival Wajhullah or be worthy of his place. So tell me, O Sakifa, who could I ever place above him? I only accepted life on the condition that I'd love him. You may call me a rejecter, but the choice was never mine. For who better than Ali to lead the hearts of humankind? And who better than Ali to lead insan to the divine? And who better than Ali to realign the human mind? Wielding wisdom like a blade and conviction like a shield, conquering his nafs the way he cleared the battlefield. For Ali's sleep on the night of Hijrah is the envy of Qiyamul Layl. Ali's sleep on the night of Hijrah is the envy of Qiyamul Layl. And Ali's sword is like a pen writing love's eternal tale. And Ali's blood is like a river that flows through paradise. And paradise itself is a reflection of his eyes that saw nothing but Allah and wanted nothing but his grace and craved no other fate but to glorify his face. The world has witnessed many warriors, but few lovers like Ali, whose jalal was only rivaled by his deep humility. Soldiers die for many masters in a multitude of wars, but this lion was struck in sajda in pure submission to his Lord. La fata illa Ali, la sayf illa dhul fiqar. There is no sword nor victory like that of Haydar-e-Karrar. So what choice do lovers have but to follow God's wali? And what choice do seekers have but to seek the wisdom of Ali? And what choice does Batil have but to fall at Ali's feet as swiftly as the sword that destroyed his enemies? And what choice did Maitham have but to give water to the tree on which his body would be hung for his devotion to Ali? For when the lover's heart is burning, only Fana drenches it. And when the lover's heart is thirsty, only Ali quenches it. The paradox of Ali's heart remains my favorite mystery, unmatched in its submission to God's most difficult decrees, yet gentle beyond words and firm yet full of might, immune to every falsehood and yet permeable to light. Any man can wield a sword. It takes a different kind of power to stroke an orphan's face and treat them like a flower. The lion of the warrior shook each battle with his passion, yet he spent his sleepless nights filling alleys with compassion. Ali's hand on the orphan's head was gentler than a mother's gaze, for the light of Ali's heart was warmer than the brilliant rays of the sun that bent to him and resumed its throne on his command. So much power did God place in his beloved servant's hand. Those hands were strong enough to lift the weighty gate of Khaybar, yet those hands were soft enough for the waifs who called him father, for the heart that never swayed in the face of countless enemies would melt upon the cries of a lonely one in need. Now the loneliest of souls reunites with those he loves. Perhaps the prophet and his daughter are awaiting him above, but not before his soul surrenders to his greatest love of all and the final act of his devotion to the creator of it all. When our souls depart this world, we will still long for the scent of Kufa, where a lover pens a letter in the form of a final sajda. We will be with the ones we love after death enlightens us, but Ali spends his final moments reuniting with his love. Now the tiles gleam with blood that speaks only of Allah as he declares his final victory by the Lord of the Kaaba. For a true lover of Allah, there is no greater victory than to give his final moments to the one who lives eternally. Salawat.
Jazakallah, Sister Bab. One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal. I would now like to request Brother Hassan Abbas to please come forward and recite a Marsiya with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. फरस की ज़ीन से बेशक उतर गए हैं हुसैन. फरस की ज़ीन से बेशक उतर गए हैं हुसैन. ज़मीन ढूंढ रही है किधर गए हैं हुसैन. फरस की ज़ीन से बेशक उतर गए हैं हुसैन. करेगा शिब्र का खंजर तो सिर्फ से को जुदा करेगा शिब्र का खंजर तो सिर्फ से को जुदा करेगा शिब्र का खंजर तो सिर्फ से को जुदा वगैर न लाश अकबर पे मर गए हुसैन. फरस की ज़ीन से बेशक उतर गए हैं हुसैन. मैं मिलने शाम के ज़िंदा मैं आऊँगा तुझसे. मैं मिलने शाम के ज़िंदा मैं आऊँगा तुझसे. ये बात आखिरी बेटी से कह गए हैं हुसैन. फरस की ज़ीन से बेशक उतर गए हैं हुसैन. और कहीं है कासिम अब्बास और कहीं अकबर कहीं है कासिम अब्बास और कहीं अकबर. कहाँ कहाँ तेरे टुकड़े बिखर गए हैं हुसैन. फरस की ज़ीन से बेशक होते गए हैं हुसैन किसी ने मारा है पत्थर बह के क्या किसी ने मारा है पत्थर बह के क्या जो कहते तिलावत टह गए हैं हुसैन फरस की ज़ीन से बेशक होते गए हैं हुसैन सलावत
Jazakallah, Brother Hassan. One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. At this point, I would like to request Syed Hussain Razavi to please come to the podium to pay his respect to Syed Asad Jafri with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil.
Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please let us recite Surah Fatiha for the soul of Marhum Maulana Syed Asad Jafri, as well as all of the shuhada, all of the martyrs, especially those who are being oppressed in the land of Palestine. Surah Fatiha, ba'd salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Abil Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad. Allahumma salli. وَلَأَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ الطَّيِّبِينَ الطَّاهِرِينَ الْمَعْصُومِينَ الْمَظْلُومِينَ الَّذِينَ أَذْهَبَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمُ الرِّجْسَ وَطَهَّرَهُمْ تَطْهِيرًا ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله نعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير. One of the reasons why we are successful as a community, why we have these majalis, why we have these gatherings, why we have our faith and beliefs is because of the role that ulama played. Throughout history, one of the important factors for us having these teachings and ma'arif of the Ahlul Bayt was because of the efforts that were exerted by our ulama. Our ulama, they went through much struggle and through much hardship so that they can disseminate these teachings and that we may have some link and some type of connection with the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They had this vision, they had this tenacity that someone had to go and compile these books and these tafasir and these different collections so that the Shia community can be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Each and every one of us, for our faith, for our piety, for whatever forms of religiosity that we have, we are indebted to ulama. And the ulama are the ones who connect us to the Ahlul Bayt. There are many verses of the Quran, many ahadith that are there that we don't understand. Some of the hadith, the Imam himself describes it as sa'abun mustas'ab. And so it is a role of the ulama to come and explain this in a manner so we can understand it while reconciling it with other ahadith, with other teachings of the Quran. So this entire school of thought is logical and rational. And so throughout the course of history, the ulama have played this central role in connecting the masses with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they went through many different hardships. They went through imprisonment, they went through house arrest, they lost their homes and belongings. Sometimes their children were killed, sometimes their houses were raided, and several of our ulama have been martyred. However, despite these hardships and difficulties that they went through, this pact and this covenant that they had with the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, it was never broken. And they continued writing and compiling and serving the cause of Ahlul Bayt. We have in the history of our ulama that sometimes they didn't have food to eat, but with whatever money that they used to have, they used to go and buy ink so they can continue writing and serving the cause of Ahlul Bayt. Or instead of going and purchasing food for their family, they would undergo hunger so that they can have oil for their candle, so they can continue to read at night and disseminate and spread those instructions of the Ahlul Bayt. And the reason why they did all of this was that so you and I can have access to this knowledge. So you and I can have this connection with the Ahlul Bayt, so we can have this deeper love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Perhaps we pick up one of these books and one ahadith or one tradition or one commentary or one book that they wrote, it may alter our lives. It may get us to think about our lives, and we change the direction of what we're going to do, and it may be the source of our deliverance. It may be the source of our spirituality. If this happened, then this means that all of their efforts and all of their work has been worth it. So it's important for us as people and adherents of the school of thought that we keep the memory of our ulama alive and we try to further their cause. And this idea of honoring the ulama, it's something which is commanded by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Allahumma salli ala. We respect them and we honor them because of their link to the Ahlul Bayt, because they are the means of delivering us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of this amana which they are carrying in their hearts. This amana is that link between us and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. I remember one of my teachers, he gave this very beautiful example, and he was talking about the importance of ulama. And he was saying that when people go and respect and honor ulama, that is the same respect and honor that they're going to give their imam. If people disrespect the ulama, if people don't honor the ulama, if people don't spend time with the ulama, if people are indifferent and apathetic when it comes to ulama, then this is the same type of relationship that they're going to have with their imam of their time. And history tends to repeat itself. If we do not support our ulama, if we don't lend a hand of support to them, then we won't lend our support to the imam of our time. The Prophet, it is narrated from him where he has said, "Man zara al-ulama faqad zarani," that the one who goes and visits an alim, faqad zarani, they've done my ziyarat. وَمَنْ جَالَسَ الْعُلَمَاء فَقَدْ جَالَسَنِي, and the one who goes and sits with an alim, it is as if he's sitting with me. وَمَنْ جَالَسَنِي فَكَأَنَّمَا جَالَسَ رَبِّي, and the one who goes and spends time and sits with ulama, it is as if he's sitting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another hadith, Imam says, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ عَالِمًا فَكُنْ لَهُ خَادِمًا. If you see an alim, if you see a scholar who's working for the cause of Ahlul Bayt, go and serve him. Make his cause your cause. Try to alleviate some of the efforts, try to alleviate some of the hardships that he may be going through. Don't abandon him, don't leave him to do whatever he needs to do, but make yourself a part of his movement. And this last hadith from Imam al-Baqir, he says, إِذَا جَلَسْتَ إِلَىٰ عَالِمٍ, and if you sit with an alim, فَكُنْ عَلَىٰ أَن تَسْمَعْ أَحْرَسْ مِنْكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تَقُولُ. And when you go to an alim, go and humble yourself. And when you go to an alim, don't just talk and talk and talk, but also listen to the advice that the alim is going to give you, because this is going to be of benefit to your own spirituality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves the ulama and He protects the ulama. And He protects the ulama in this dunya as well as He protects them in the akhirah. There's a story that one of our senior ulama, he was traveling and he came to the city of Baghdad. And when he came to Baghdad, the sultan of that time heard that this great Shia scholar is visiting. So he said that, tell the Shia scholar to come and visit me. So they go and they tell this alim that the sultan of the time is calling you. And so the alim, he says, no, I don't, sit in the company of those types of people. They said, no, you have no choice. You have to come and sit and participate and have dinner with the Sultan of the time. So because he had no choice, he went to that gathering. And as he went to that gathering, they bought food and they started eating. And as they were eating, the Sultan says to him that, doesn't your sixth Imam say that if you stay away from haram food, then if you stay away from sinning, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you from haram food? So the alim said, yes, we have a hadith where the Imam said that if you stay away from sinning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you from haram food. So the Sultan says, this food which you ate is in front of you, that you're eating, it's haram food. So what is the deal? You must have committed a sin. You must have disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this alim was confused and he thought that, how did I eat something haram? Did I commit any type of sin? He knows his level, he knows his caliber. And he said, no, I did not commit any type of sin. So he asked the Sultan, how is this food, how is it haram? So they said, it's haram, don't worry about it. He said, no, tell me how it's haram. So they went and bring the chef, and the chef said, well, I told some of the soldiers to go and steal an animal and take that animal, which is acquired through haram means, because haram food doesn't necessarily mean eating that which is not dhabiha, but also from an illicit source. And so I told the soldiers to go and steal it and bring it here, and we'll slaughter it, and we're going to feed this alim that's coming. So then the alim says, who did you steal it from? He said, we stole it from someone outside of the city, this shepherd. So he says, go bring the shepherd. So the shepherd, he comes, and they bring him, and as he enters into the palace of the Sultan, they ask him, did the soldiers come and steal your animal? He says, yes, they stole my animal. I wanted to sacrifice this animal because this great Shia alim was entering the city. But they came and they stole it from me. And so this is when the alim, when he smiled and he said, look, this food which was in front of you was haram for all of you, but it wasn't haram for me. And so this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects ulama. Protects the ulama in this dunya as well as in the akhirah. Surely Maulana Syed Asad Jafri was among the ulama. He was among the scholarly. And his presence will be deeply missed by communities across the globe, especially the English-speaking communities. I remember when I first had come to Qom, I met Syed Asad Jafri, and he was a source of comfort and hope, because going to a new country, a new language, a new culture, it's very difficult to make that transition. But he would always remind me that you made the right decision, leaving behind your old life and coming and pursuing the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt. This is something which is going to be of great benefit for you. I remember one time we were playing basketball, and he was on my team, and we were playing against some other brothers, and there were some other brothers on our team. And the other brothers who were on our team, they weren't as good. They were from some countries where they don't play basketball. And so, but they were on our team. So as we were playing, whenever we would give it to those brothers, they would give a turnover, and they would, the ball would go to the other team. It was starting to get really frustrating. So then I said, I'm not going to pass it to these guys. I'll pass it to Maulana Asad Jafri, and Asad Jafri, mashallah, he was 6'4", right? So he could take it inside the hoop and nothing to worry about. And so he noticed that I stopped passing to these guys, to these brothers. And he came to me and he said to me, make sure you distribute the ball fairly. And although it was a very simple piece of advice, it was important that we have to be fair and just throughout our lives. When we live our lives, it's not that we're only religious when we come to the center. It's not only when we're religious when we go for ziyarah. No, wirdan wahidan. We have this full component of our lives where we're fully committed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember when he went for tabligh for the first time in the month of Muharram, and he came back, and some of the Western students, we had gathered together, and he was talking about his experience. And he had gone to Atlanta, and he was saying that he went to go speak over there, and after the first couple of nights, so many people started coming. And then he said that because I was speaking, the other centers, they changed the time of their majalis so that they can come to my speech. And he didn't say this out of arrogance. He didn't say this out of, this is how good I am. He said this, like someone who was so happy that now he can serve the cause of the Ahlul Bayt. He can serve the Imam of his time, and he was feeling so proud that I can share some of these teachings that I have acquired in the Hawza. And so this is who Maulana Syed Asad Jafri was. He was somebody who wanted to bring about a change. One time I was visiting him at the center, and this is one of those centers that was very reluctant to invite English speakers. And he was going there year after year, and he said, I don't know what more I can do to give a jolt to the people that they wake up from this slumber and to start practicing religion with more passion. And he's like, whatever I do, they don't listen to me. And this was who he was. He took the responsibility upon his own shoulders to go and help people. And he would go through a lot of inconvenience. Somebody who's that big, traveling long distances, a lot of times, you're flying through economy class where the seat is so small and tiny, but he wouldn't complain because he was so tall. A lot of times the bed wouldn't fit him. So he would end up sleeping on the ground. And he would go through all of these hardships. Why? Because he knew that this is the way that he can serve the cause of the Ahlul Bayt. And this is what he did. He sacrificed his life. He sacrificed his career for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. He lived through difficulty, through hardship. Living in Qom those days wasn't the easiest of tasks. Even when he was in Qom, he had a basketball injury where he had to go back to Canada. And then after he got surgery, he immediately came back to continue his studies, because this is what he saw as a calling. This is what he saw the purpose and objective of his life. This is what he saw, how he can serve the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And as many of you have heard his speeches, Maulana Asad Jafri, he brought this new style of doing tabligh. Many times we have speakers and they're always getting angry and yelling and talking about the fire of hell. But Asad Jafri, he was somebody who was uplifting. He was somebody who was inspiring, not carrying all that negativity, the doomsday, the grave, the punishment. No, he was somebody, when he would speak, he would give hope, he would inspire other people. Many of the themes that he used to talk about was personal growth for community growth. That when we want to make a change in the community, we have to ourselves undergo this type of personal growth. And that's personal growth includes spiritual growth, emotional growth, intellectual growth. And this is what he would do. He would inspire us and he would motivate us to make that change within ourselves. And this is probably the reason why he was so effective, because he himself practiced what he preached. Not just someone who came and talked, but he made those changes within himself. One of the fundamental changes that Maulana Asad Jafri did was that work which was done off of the mimbar. Many ulama, many speakers, most of the time their role is restricted just to the mimbar. They come, they deliver speeches, and they leave. But Maulana said he would make a point that these majalis that we have, they would begin with hadith-e-kisa and they would end with ziyarah. It shouldn't be as if there's a bus dropping off a whole bunch of people in the middle of the majlis. No, he would emphasize having this work ethic, attending the majlis from the beginning to the end. And even when he visited here, he was here after the majlis. He was talking to the people. He was allowing them to express their difficulties, and he was giving their advice. And he wasn't a big fan of these celebrity speakers who would, walk in from the door and go to the mimbar, and from the mimbar walk straight out. No, he was somebody who wanted to live amongst the people and be among the people. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And because of this desire that he had to help people and to serve people, we see that he changed the entire landscape of how he used to do tabligh. After the majlis or after the programs, he would have workshops, he would have youth groups, he would have discussions, he would go and he would play sports with the young adults. Even with the young kids, he would go and play duck, duck, goose. All the young kids, 5, 6 years of age, they would sit in a circle and he would go around, tap their heads, saying duck, duck, goose, and he would run around with them. Why? Because he knew this is what needed to happen in order to make a change. Asad Bhai, he was a pioneer, especially for the English language. He was delivering high-level content in a very logical manner, in a very rational manner. I remember one time I had gone to a center and I went to go visit him, and somebody came to him and started criticizing him that, why are you giving speeches in English? It's probably, 2009, 2010, where this shift was happening to English language. And a lot of people weren't happy about it because they wanted to preserve their mother tongue of Urdu. And so a senior person came to him and criticized him that you should give speeches in Urdu. Don't give speeches in English. And so instead of going and starting a debate, all Asad Bhai did was that he just smiled at him and said, Inshallah, and he moved on. He wasn't somebody who was, starting fights or bickering or having arguments with anybody. And one of the beautiful qualities that Asad Bhai had was that he would preach with a smile to everyone. This is a really important quality to have, especially when we teach Islam. When we talk about our religion, we should have a smile on our faces. We shouldn't be angry. We shouldn't be always raising our voices. And so this is who Asad Bhai was. He would go and he would visit different communities. Even communities who he may not agree with on an ideological basis. But Asad Bhai, he felt that he should be a rising tide where all of the boats, they come up. Sometimes people would discourage him that don't go to this center or don't go to that center or this place. But Asad Bhai, he would refuse and he would go to and visit most centers. One of the unique qualities that he also had was that in his relationships, he wanted to have meaningful relationships, not the shallow and superficial types of relationships. You know, sometimes he would come and he would say this to other men. He would say, I love you. And he would say it in a way where he actually meant it, where he had this brotherly love for other people. You know, he wanted to have that strong bond of iman in his heart for other believers. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. That the relationship amongst the believers is that the relationship of brothers. One of the brothers, he was saying that when he went to go visit his family, one of his family members was saying that Asad Bhai, he would give his phone to his niece and it would say, scroll through my contacts. And she would go and she would scroll through the contacts and pick a contact. And Asad Bhai would go and send a message or send a voice note, just asking, how are you doing? It's been a long time. And this is who he was, somebody who wanted to build the bonds in the community and create harmony between brothers. And this is what made him so effective, because he spoke with his heart to reach the hearts of other people. You know, one of the biggest challenges that speakers and ulama have is masaib. Masaib is one of the most difficult parts. But Asad Bhai, he would deliver the masaib in such an eloquent manner. Sometimes I would watch his lectures, especially the last part. How does he deliver it so eloquently? And as much as I reflected and was thinking about it, it was because of ikhlas. It was because of sincerity. When a person speaks from their hearts, it goes into the hearts of the mu'mineen. Asad Bhai, as he leaves this dunya, as he left this dunya, he reminds us of this important lesson that it's not important for how long we live, but what is important is how we lived. You know, Asad Bhai, he lives behind a rich legacy of lectures and workshops and camps. So many youth, when you speak to them, they say he was such a strong factor in giving us a Shia identity. He was such a strong factor in figuring out our direction in life. He was so important for us to recognize who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And so we pray for his soul. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him his sins. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise him with those who he spent his life serving their cause. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he's a recipient of the intercession of the Ahlul Bayt, that he's immersed and enveloped in the mercy and the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all the marhameen, especially marhum Syed Asad Jafri, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant his family patience and perseverance in this time of difficulty. Let us recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the soul of Maulana Syed Asad Jafri. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, I don't know what to expect tonight. Sayyid Asad, you win again, okay? So, we go back to, I tried to think about when we first met, me and Sayyid Asad, and I couldn't remember when we actually met. And no matter how much I thought, I think the first time we ever met was on that basketball court in Qom. Because I was in the Iranian housing system. The brothers, Sayyid Hussein, others, they were in the non-Iranian housing system. And so when I first went in the 90s, late 90s, I didn't really know what's going on in the Western side of things and the non-Iranian side of things, yeah? For as far back as I remember, that's where we met. Now, Sayyid Hussein had a very good relationship with Sayyid Asad. Me and Sayyid Asad, we had a love and hate relationship. So, you were talking about being just on the basketball court. Yeah, when it came to others. Because I was the second tallest amongst the brothers, they would usually put me to guard him, and he wasn't very just. Oh, he would speak whatever he wanted to me. The thing about him was that you knew there was no ill intent whatsoever. That was what was beautiful about him. And so he went through different stages, I'm going to say, it seems, over these years. And there was a stage where, our relationship went through different stages. So first, initially, I would say it was a trivial one, a very superficial one. I would see him once a week on the basketball court. I didn't really know who he was. And as time passed, that relationship turned into something better and bigger. As time passed, it reached a point where, because Asad Bhai was hard to impress, okay? And he would not sugarcoat things either. And so it reached a point, alhamdulillah, where a group had come to Iran from Toronto, America, Canada, UK, the Al-Asr group, those of you who know, the Al-Asr trip. And so after that trip, there was a lot of Toronto kids there. I'm pretty sure some of them are probably watching tonight or will probably watch the recording later. So my salams to them. They had come back and they had told Asad Bhai that this guy, meaning me, we want him to come for Muharram and these kinds of things. For me, I had sworn at and made an oath that I will never come to the West for tabligh and lecturing and these things. Yeah, too bad for you guys. Now look what happened. The one to blame for all of this is Syed Asad. Yeah, because he came up to me. Other colleagues and whatnot, they had said that, we think you should go and all of that. But for many years, I wasn't interested. I have family, relatives, my parents, my mom, dad, everybody was in Iran. So I was like, I'm going to stay here forever. And so that group asked Asad Bhai to force me to go out. And so the first ever time, because you can't say no to him when he roars at you. Yeah? And he wouldn't say Sheikh Amin to me or anything. Amin, that's all it was. Amin, the kids liked you and all that, you want to go? I was like, no, I'm not about that life. No, you're going. And I still remember I'd never seen an iPhone before back then. This is I don't know when this is, 2010 or something. I mean, think about it. I hadn't come back in more than a decade. And so I saw him typing really quick. He said, tell me about your credentials or something. So I told him, well, okay, I went to the Hawza this year, this, and he was typing really fast. I was like, wow, look at this phone that doesn't have buttons, and you can type with it so fast, even if you're Asad Jafri, he was big. And the phones back then were smaller than they are now, the iPhones. It's like iPhone 3 or something. All right, so he wrote down everything and sent me off, kind of, and, I think it was a Ramadan. It was the second half of Ramadan, the first time ever. I think maybe 2011 or something like that I went out. This is 12, 13 years into my stay in Qom. And that's where it all started, brothers and sisters, right? If there's any misguidance that happens through me, he's the one to blame. Asad Bhai is the one to blame, because after that, he also came and he was surprised that, wow, all these kids' names here. The older kids, maybe the older teens, young to mid-20s, those ones. There was a lot of them back then in the Al-Mahdi Center, which they call council. And we would play in the nights of Ramadan, we played volleyball and all that. And Asad Bhai came and he kind of felt threatened by me. And so he started playing volleyball with us as well. And he was really good at volleyball too. Really good at volleyball and basketball and other things. And so we had this rivalry always. But it was a nice one. It wasn't something that you get negativity out of. And I still remember, he was telling me, you even know the nicknames of all the guys here. And so that led to me coming again and again and again to Toronto, because I didn't have the confidence to go anywhere else. These were my friends now. These were my brothers, and it was easier to go there. So a few times we went there and so on. Well, it reached the point where I wasn't going to Toronto anymore years later, because I became super awesome and super famous, too cool for Toronto. And Bichara, he kept messaging me. I was looking at the messages the other night. I was looking at his messages to me. And he was saying that, please, come one more time. It's been 10 years. And I promise you won't lecture in the tent. You will lecture inside. Because they had this tent outside for the rookie speakers and the English-speaking thing. And then they had the programs inside. Have you seen the tent before? Yeah. I'm looking at the message. He says, I promise you, you won't go to the tent. I said, Baba, that was where it all started. I love the tent, And those who are probably watching from Toronto, they know what I'm talking about, the tent. But that's where it all started, brothers and sisters. So this relationship of ours, it reached its final stage, I want to say. where it just became something very nice, where it was really a brotherly one. He would message me once again. Every now and then, these past few days, I've been listening to some of the messages. And then he keeps saying, Amin, you're my brother. I want to talk to you about something. And consulting me now, although he was the older brother. And so that humility, although he was very big, he didn't have to have humility. As Syed said, he could have walked in through a door and gone out the same door and given his lecture and gone as a celebrity speaker, because who are we kidding? He was one of the best. I would tell people all the time, he is the best speaker we have. Okay? Yes, there are others with powerful deliveries and whatnot, but someone like him, to be able to tackle the topics he was tackling, I was always happy. I was like, we have him at least. He won't sugarcoat stuff, but at the same time, he will break it down with confidence and give you confidence that, look, you know what you're doing as a Muslim. The other ones don't know what they're doing. Yeah, the crazy stuff that's happening today and people are pushing today, don't worry about it. I got this. And so that's what lots of his lectures were revolving around, that identity, the confidence, and all these different things that we have, these isms that we have to fight today. I was very happy that, he's on top of things. We don't have too many like him. I personally think that he is irreplaceable. I don't know what the future holds for us in that regard. It's really a big void that we have now. And so that brings me to something about him that I want to talk about, okay? And it might get a little negative. But I have to talk about it because this is my only opportunity to talk about it where it's a little relevant. What do I want to say? One of his characteristics was that he has his patience. His patience when he knew what certain people are saying about him, okay? Now, yesterday, I said, if you don't want me to talk about this, you come to my dream and you tell me. Otherwise, I'm talking about it. Well, guess what? I don't think he wants to see me anymore. So, no dream or anything. So I just want, jokes aside, I want to talk about something very quickly here. And that is that, when he passed away last week, messages were coming and going and stuff. Some of the messages were we should take care of, the sheikhs need to take care of their health more and so on. I said, okay, wait a minute. If we want to talk about health and stuff, that is something that is really necessary, yes. But if we are, as communities, worried about the sheikh and the alim and so on, to the point that, if we know if one of them goes, it's not like Najaf or Qom where if one alim dies, okay, there's thousands of other alims. No. How many of these do we have? We lost like 1/10 of what we had, man. Because he wasn't just one person, okay? He was an army, really. Him himself, he was an army. All right. We can't afford to lose people like this. Now, I don't want to say that we lost him due to what I'm about to talk about right now, but you never know that what things contribute to things accumulating to a point where it reaches that tipping point, okay? He was very patient. He wouldn't show others anything of what is making him upset all the time, his contagious smile. That's all it was, yeah? But even those last messages of his, when I look at them, minutes and minutes of him talking about what? Talking about certain things. All I want to say is this, and I'm not talking, and I know people might see this in the future, other cities out there. We travel a lot. We see what's going on in other cities. I'm not speaking as an alim anymore. I'm speaking as a community member who observes certain things, yeah, and is worried for our communities because we can't afford to lose people. As a community member, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit because I'm not a resident alim anymore, right? So there is no affiliation. I'm good, alhamdulillah, I'm good, kind of. But when you go to different cities, and I'm not talking about Dallas anymore. I'm talking about a bigger picture right now. When you go to different cities, you find that the scholars there, each of them, they have enough to deal with. We as a community, over petty issues, cannot add more to the problem. This one had a fight in their family, and then the Maulana, judged like in this person's favor. There was a divorce here. There was a transaction between two of the community members there. They have an issue, and the Maulana, astaghfirullah, said that this person's right, this person's wrong. Before you know it, this Maulana has to always look over their shoulder to keep everybody happy. It adds up, brothers and sisters. It accumulates. Community members have to be careful and take care of their Maulanas. I'm telling you. And when I say this, what do I mean by Maulana? Oh, but our Maulana didn't study that much, this and that. Look, man, do you think Syed Asad was known to be like a super mujtahid or something? No. But guess how many people came to his funeral? Versus someone else who might have been a mujtahid if they pass away? Not as many. Because at the end of the day, the product that's delivered for consumption to the consumer, the community, goes through this filter, this last filter, which is the Asad Bhais. These ones, yeah, are what make that product something that people are interested in or not. It's the reality of the matter. No, our Maulana this, our Maulana that. Look, brothers and sisters, I'm going to say this to the camera, all right? We go around to different cities. What I've been noticing as a young, humble, not young, but humble brother, small brother, what I am observing is that sometimes the Maulana, the Alim, that is doing good work on the ground, bringing the community together, bringing different centers and communities together. What our Maraja and our leaders want from us. This is what they want. When you sit down with them, you go back home, you talk to all these big people, that's all they say. They say, you guys in the West, just try to get along with each other and learn Islam. That's all they say. But then you'll have always a few here, a few there, that will cause a lot of stress. He was telling me toxicity. He was like, it's gotten toxic in his messages. I'm sharing it because now he's not around us anymore. Talking about how, oh, this person calling me out on, why'd you do the ashra here? Why are you working there? Why'd you do this? A few months ago, someone, I don't even know what the justification for that is. They tried to put him on the spot. They made a video. They spread it out. Hundreds, if not thousands of people saw it. He's talking to me about these things. He says, I mean, like, this is like, you know what? This takes a toll. And then he leaves this dunya. That person who makes a video trying to call him out because you didn't post like this, or you didn't actively say that, or you didn't politically do this. Baba, when we lose these individuals, and once again, I'm not saying we lose them because of these things, but these things add. This is part of health. If you're worried for my health, this is part of it. When you do this, it's like you're taking a chunk out of that guy. Yeah. They're not on the right path. That's one thing. Brothers and sisters, no one else of these people who cause problems for some of these Maulanas, for these alims that are doing work on the ground, none of them, once that alim leaves, whether it leaves the community or leaves this dunya, none of them are going to do anything for your children. I'm letting you know. Sometimes it's not even the people. Sometimes there's an alim that parachutes in and parachutes out. But for some reason, they feel like they're the authority of a big part of North America, for example. And they will tell their little people, hey, this is wrong, that's wrong. And then they go back. Baba, I've seen this firsthand where that alim leaves the kids and children and of the youth of that community that had somebody at least. Now they don't have anybody. Well, parachute Maulana, can you come help us out now? He's nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. These are things to keep in mind. I hate to talk about these things. I want to talk about how great Asad Jafri was. Alhamdulillah, over the past few days, I've watched a lot of the Eesaal Thawabs. Yeah, everyone's talking about how great he was. But these are things that we need to keep in mind. Not when they go, oh, he was wonderful, he was wonderful. Which community stood up when they tried to hurt him and sit that guy down who made that, who tried to call him out? Who did that? Who stood up? I'm not saying they didn't, but if they didn't, then we have a problem here. We have to solve that problem together. No one is going to take care of our children, brothers and sisters, except the ones who are doing work on the ground. All right? As long as the alim has taqwa and has some knowledge of the deen, finished. Oh, this one, he's not like this, he's not like that, he's not in line with our great Maulana this and our great Maulana that. Doesn't matter. No one's going to do the work for us, brothers and sisters. We're on our own. I hate to say it. The demand we have is high and the supply is low. And we just lost another big one. Yeah? So we can't afford to lose anymore. Yeah? These things, they add up, brothers and sisters. We need to be very careful about these things. Once again, I'm not talking about our community. I'm talking about what I'm observing as I go here and there. And the complaints of people. People are fed up, but because they're a little more silent, the loud ones are always getting away with what they want to. Eventually, nothing happens, right? Where the community goes on the right path now, all that happens is the Maulana is put under more pressure and more stress. He was complaining. He was a strong mountain. That's why he wasn't like me to cry. about things. But he wasn't like that. I'm going to say it though. I'm going to say it. With Asad Bhai, yeah, there were these things he was worried about. So for that final stage though, alhamdulillah, it reached the point where we were talking to each other intimately. I was so happy for him because he was looking for a place where he could settle. There was a time he wanted to go to London. We talked about that. There was a time he told me, I want to go back to Qom. This is a few years ago. I want to go back to Qom and continue my studies. Wow. I don't know if anybody knew that. I had to talk him out of it. You're welcome. I had to talk him out of it. I don't know, he probably spoke to others too, but I really said, listen, what are you talking about? Like, the knowledge you have is more than enough. Don't worry about it. All right? Ayatollah Bahjat, when they come to him, when it's time to go for tabligh, and I'm speaking too much, I'm sorry, I'm about to end. When they come to him and they ask him, what are we supposed to do when we go and lecture in tabligh and Muharram and Ramadan? He says, talk to the people about the basics. The basics. What's important is how to deliver these basics. That's exactly what you're doing, Asad. So don't worry about the rest. I want to go back. It's going to put pressure on you, put pressure on your family, your kids. No. So finally, alhamdulillah, he had settled down. He had settled down. He had that work that he was doing with the kids in the school. He was doing his workshops around. He was telling me, he's like, I'm happy. And I messaged him. I said, look, man, I said, bhai, I am so happy for you. You finally figured it out. You're spending time with your family more now, alhamdulillah. But whatever the wisdom was, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took him back to him before he even reached the age of 50. And this is a reminder for all of us. Yeah, I don't know how accurate it is, but some were telling me that as he was wearing his socks at the door to go for Sunday school, to teach at Sunday school, on his way out is when it happened. Think about it. You're tying your shoelaces, it's time to go. Yeah? But for him, good for him. He left in a state of servitude to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us that opportunity as well. If we leave this dunya, we leave in a state of obedience, in a state of worship, inshaAllah. May Allah bless his soul. May Allah give patience to his family, which is probably going through a lot these days. May Allah forgive all of us and him. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Salawat.
Allowed salawat, please. Let's take a moment to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for Syed Asad as well as all of your marhumin and marhumat with another loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the love of our beloved Prophet, a second loud salawat. اللهم صل على For the hastening and the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So I'll preface my short talk by mentioning that Sayyid Hussein and Sheikh Amin were on the podium. If I'm sitting on the mimbar, it's because we're going to transition into Masa'ib later. It's not because of their status and so on and so forth. Yes. Hopefully that's clear. A couple words about our dear Syed and our dear friend, brother, scholar, all these different terminology that we use for him. I'm not going to make it too sad because I won't be able to get through the talk myself. So I'm going to try to, inshallah, have a different touch to it. Recite a salawat, please. So some of those things that stood out about Syed, I think Sheikh Amin and Syed Hussein spoke very eloquently. Just a couple personal interactions that I had with him myself, and then inshallah we'll remember the masa'ib of the Ahlul Bayt. One thing that they mentioned that was very, very clear about him was the kindness and the compassion. So if you hadn't had the chance to meet Syed on a one-on-one basis, and you might have just heard his voice, you might have been a bit scared of him, because that voice, mashallah, was something different. And so sometimes even I remember Syed telling me himself that sometimes people might listen to a couple minutes here or there and not knowing who he is, not hearing the whole message, they would come back sometimes with comments of, why is this Maulana like this? Why is he being harsh? And so on and so forth. If you had the time to sit through the whole lecture, if you got to know him, he's the exact opposite of that. Very compassionate, very kind. So I remember giving him a hard time a little bit over the idea of, why can't we have you come here more often, right? So I remember telling him, I need an ashra from you. I need one ashra from you. And I was probably like the 75th city that probably told him that, yeah? There's probably 70 other cities before me who had asked him for that. And so we went back and forth, and interestingly, 2025, Syed had promised to be here. Unfortunately, we're deprived from that ashra, yes? But I remember when I asked him, I said, Syed, what about this year? He said, that year I've already promised to another community. So what about this year? I'm already promised to another community. What about this year? So I jokingly told him, I was like, so which year is ours? Like, this is not gonna work. Yeah? And he said, Mahdi, thing is, I say no so many times before I can say yes to any community. It's so difficult for me to say no to so many people. But that was the kindness and compassion that he had in his heart. Yes? That though the outside was a strong build and a thick voice and so on and so forth, the heart was very, very soft. That's the first thing that stood out about him the most. That's number one. Number two, the connection he made with the younger generation. And that connection was not just having good akhlaq. Sometimes people might just have good akhlaq with someone from the younger generation. But it's a different situation and scenario when, recite salawat, please. One more salawat, please. It's a different thing when you can be honest with the younger generation, advise them at the same time, and at the same time show your kindness and your compassion. That's something that we're going to miss with Syed. Another salawat, please. So I won't go on for too long. I wanted to share a narration about where a person like Syed is right now, where his soul is, and this is the promise of our Ahlul Bayt. What the Ahlul Bayt have told us about the soul of this person is that they are in an amazing place. They're in a wonderful place. So I wanted to just share one narration from the book of Al-Kafi that speaks about the final moments when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to take the soul of a believer. Yes? Maybe I made a mistake to choose this narration because it's too emotional. But I'll try my best, inshallah, to get through it. One more loud salawat, please. So the narration is narrated from Abu Basir. He's narrating from the words of our beloved sixth Imam, Al-Imam Al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. It's a very beautiful narration, and there are many other narrations like this in Al-Kafi where the Ahlul Bayt spoke about when we leave this world. And this could be any of us at any point, like Sheikh Amin was talking about. So the sixth Imam is explaining to Abu Basir, this is what happens to our friends and our believers. إِذَا حِيلَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ الْكَلَامِ, when the moment comes when this person cannot speak anymore. Atahu Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah, Muhammadin al-Mustafa, salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi, comes to him. وَمَنْ شَاءَ Allah, and those that Allah wants. This is, of course, the Ahlul Bayt. The narrations that we have of the Ahlul Bayt meeting a person in their final moments in our school of thought is many. It's not one or two. There's many narrations that speak about this idea. فَجَلَسَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ عَنْ يَمِينِهِ, so the messenger of God sits on his right side. وَالْآخَرُ عَنْ يَسَارِهِ, and the rest of them on the left side. فَيَقُولُ لَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, the messenger of God says, أَمَّا مَا كُنْتَ تَرْجُو فَهُوَ ذَا أَمَامَكَ. Everything that you were working for, everything that you were looking forward to, is now ahead of you. وَأَمَّا مَا كُنْتَ تَخَافُ مِنْهِ, and that which you feared, فَقَدْ أَمِنْتَ مِنْهِ. You don't have to worry about the difficulties of this world anymore, and so on and so forth. ثُمَّ يُفْتَحُ لَهُ بَابٌ إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. A door or a window is opened to heaven for him. فَيَقُولُ هَذَا مَنْزِلُكَ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ. This is where you're going to be in heaven. فَإِنْ شِئْتَ رَدَدْنَاكَ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا. If you don't want to go there, we can send you back. This is your choice. And that's why the narrations say a believer doesn't leave this world without his own will. وَلَكَ فِيهَا ذَهَبٌ وَفِضَّةٌ فَيَقُولُ لَا حَاجَةَ لِي فِي الدُّنْيَا. This person will say, I don't need the dunya anymore. Like what he sees is so beautiful. The presence and the acquaintance of the Ahlul Bayt is so beautiful for him, he wants to move on. فَعِنْدَ ذَلِكَ يَبْيَضُّ لَوْنُهُ. At that point, he starts to go pale. And the Imam starts to describe signs that, of course, signs of, the soul slowly leaving the body. فَإِذَا أُدْرِجَ فِي أَكْفَانِهِ وَوُضِعَ عَلَى سَرِيرِهِ خَرَجَتْ رُوحُهُ تَمْشِي بَيْنَ أَيْدِي الْقَوْمِ قُدُمًا. As people come to take his body, and the body is now in the kafan. As they come to take his body, the narration says the soul goes and it is meeting the souls of other mu'mineen who have already left this world. Now this is inshallah where Syed is. There's no doubt about this, yes? And those believers, their souls come to him, يُسَلِّمُونَ عَلَيْهِ وَيُبَشِّرُونَهُ. They give him glad tidings that you made it. This is where you were meant to be. فَإِذَا وُضِعَ فِي قَبْرِهِ. When he is placed in the grave, رُدَّ إِلَيْهِ الرُّوحِ. The soul is connected to the body again. ثُمَّ يُسْأَلُ عَمَّا يَعْلَمُ. Then the questioning, of course, starts that we've all heard of. But then take a look at how the narration skips over this part. Because for a person who's not prepared, this questioning is the most difficult thing he's ever going to experience. For the person who is prepared, it's the easiest thing that this person is ever going to experience. ثُمَّ يَسْأَلُ عَمَّا يَعْلَمُ فَإِذَا جَاءَ بِمَا يَعْلَمُ. They ask him, he answers. This is all the Imam says. They ask him, he answers, because he already has all the answers. It's like walking into a test when they already gave you the questions from before. Walking into a situation, you already know exactly what you're supposed to say to pass the test. فَيُسْأَلُ عَمَّا فَإِذَا جَاءَ بِمَا يَعْلَمُ فَتَحَ اللَّهُ لَهُ ذَلِكَ الْبَابِ. He, in the grave now, that same window that he had seen before opens towards heaven. أراه رسول الله. They show him the messenger of God and the Ahlul Bayt. فَيَدْخُلُ عَلَيْهِ مِن نُورِهَا وَضَوْئِهَا وَطِيبِ رِيحِهَا. So the grave now becomes enlightened. Why? Because the window from heaven essentially is opened up into the grave. And so the Rawi, the narrator, asked this question. He said, يَا ابْنَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ فَأَيْنَ ضَغْطَةُ الْقَبْرِ. Where's the part where the grave is going to squeeze him and pressure him and all of this kind of stuff? This is a valid question. You and I would have this question too. It seems perfect. So the Imam said, no, hayhat. Yes, hayhat we've heard of before, yes? Hayhata min nadhillah. Yes, hayhat means what? It's far from, like not even close to what's going to happen. Hayhat, the Imam said, definitely not. Ma ala al-mu'minina minha shay'un. The true believer, when he ends up there, there's no pressure it's all blessings. It's all being with the Ahlul Bayt. Wallah. And then the Imam, per this narration, which is narrated in multiple hadith books of ours, he swore. He said, Inna hadhihi al-ard la taftakhiru ala hadhih. Every piece of land takes pride in the fact, in certain things, over another piece of land. What is it taking pride in? He said he takes pride in the fact that he says, a believer walks over me. But you, meaning referring to another piece of the land of earth, a believer didn't walk on you. This believer was walking on me. Then the Imam quotes this piece of land, فَيَقُولُ, and he continues, وَتَقُولُ لَهُ الْأَرْض, and then this land that he is buried in, what does he say to the person who is in the grave? Yes, this is the last line of the narration. وَتَقُولُ لَهُ الْأَرْض وَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ كُنْتُ أُحِبُّكَ. I used to love you. When you used to live your life, I used to love you. The earth is speaking to who? The person who is in the grave. وَأَنْتَ تَمْشِي عَلَى ظَهْرِي, and you were walking upon me. فَأَمَّا إِذَا وَلَّيْتُكَ, now that your affairs have been granted to me, now that I'm in charge of you, فَسَتَعْلَمُ مَاذَا أَصْنَعُ بِكَ, you will see how well I treat. I've been waiting for you. This is, of course, where every great believer ends up, and of course, our dear Syed is in this situation as well. And then the last line of the narration, فَتَفْسَحُ لَهُ مُدَّ بَصَرِهِ, and his grave now opens up as far as he can see, as far as the eyesight works. Which pressure of the grave? For someone who's prepared, and our dear Syed is definitely like this, there is no pressure, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, our dear Syed is in the best of places. Yes. Allahumma salli. He, of course, left behind an empty space and an empty place, especially with the 3 kids. Very, very difficult. Let's dim the lights, inshallah. As the Ahlul Bayt have taught us that when we go through masa'ib of our own, to remember the day that there is no day like it, and to remember difficulties that there are no difficulties like it. And that is the masa'ib of our beloved 3rd Imam. A father leaving this world, not just any father, such a special father, and the children having to go through this difficulty and miss their father. It reminds you of many moments on the 10th of Muharram. But the one I want to take your hearts towards are those final moments of our beloved 3rd Imam. When Hussein looked to his left, he looked to his right, he saw there's no one left for him anymore. Ali al-Akbar has already gone to the battlefield. He's already been martyred. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas has not come back. His body left near the Alqama. Qasim ibn al-Hasan came back. Some narrations say the body was not even intact. Hussein knew this was the final moment. This is the ghurba and the loneliness of Hussein, the ghurba and the loneliness of a father. The Maqatil say he then turned towards the tents. He said, Ya Zainab, Ya Kulthum, alaykunna minni salam. My salam goes to you, my children, because Hussein knows after this time, there's no more seeing these children anymore. He knows after this time, it's only going to be pain and difficulty and captivity for them. The moment he called out these lines, the narration says one of the daughters of Hussein started to respond to her father. And Sukaina called back, she said, my father, is this meaning that these are your final moments and you are leaving us behind? You're going to leave us in the middle of this desert. And Hussein said, wherever I go, they will come after me, my daughter. It doesn't matter anymore where Hussein goes. They will come to take his life. The narration says Hussein then started to make his way into the tent of the Ahlul Bayt. And just imagine the atmosphere in that tent, yes? These 3 children who are missing their father. Imagine what the 10th of Muharram was like, where all of these children and all of these women gathered around Abu Abdullah. Imagine what Hussein had to say to each and every one of these children. What did Imam al-Hussein say to the mother of Ali al-Asqar? What did Imam al-Hussein say maybe to the mother of Qasim? What did Imam al-Hussein say to the other relatives? But the one thing we do know that's narrated in some of the narrations is when Hussein came into the tent, one of these daughters was crying more than anybody else. And that was Sukaina. Sukaina couldn't stop herself. She kept crying and crying. And the narration says Hussein came and embraced her and held her close. And he started to kiss the forehead of Sukaina. And he started to wipe away the tears of Sukaina. Just imagine the scene. And the narration says as much as he did so, Sukaina was still in pain. She was still in difficulty. So Hussein started to speak to her and he said to Sukaina, Sukaina, When I leave this tent, at least do me one favor. This one request I have of you, Sukaina, is this. When I head out of this tent, don't cry while I'm alive. Don't cry while I can still hear your voice. Don't cry while I can hear your cry. Because every time I hear you crying, it tears my heart apart. I can't take this pain. And the narration says Hussein finally was able to calm down these women and children. So many of them pleaded with Hussein, Hussein, take us back to Medina, take us back to the city of our grandfather. But what could Hussein do in the middle of this desert? This gharib, lonely imam of ours, al-witr al-mawtur, the one who was left alone. The narration says Hussein finally started to make his way out of the tent. Imagine in front of Hussein an army. No matter how many Hussein goes up against, they will still pour towards him. No matter how many he takes out, they will still come for the tents. They will still come to set the tents on fire. They will still come to steal the jewelry of the children. The narration says Hussein made his way out of the tent slowly the moment he got on his horse. And now maybe a little bit of armor and maybe a little bit of a torn up clothing and clothes that he might hope that they won't take from his body when everything is all said and done. The narration says the call came from the tent. Mahlan mahla yabna Zahra. O son of Zahra, go slowly. Don't go so fast. The heart of these women and children is tied to you. These women and children are looking at you for the final moments, for the final time. Hussein, mahlan mahla, go slowly, yabna Zahra, O the son of Zahra. Who is this? This is the one that Hussein, no matter how many times he says goodbye to, still the goodbye is not good enough, because this is Zainab, the daughter of Ali. The narration says Zainab started to make her way out of the tent and came closer. And one of the narrations says Hussein bent down as Zainab embraced him for the final time, maybe kissed him on the neck that was going to be severed moments later and minutes later. What went through the heart of Zainab in those moments? Maybe she went back to the tents telling the children not to look. Maybe she went back to the tents telling the women not to look, because of the masa'ib that would begin from that moment and would continue for days and months. Ala la'natullah ala al-qawmi al-zalimeen. Wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. We tell the dear family of our dear Syed, Sister Zahra, his wife, the 3 children that we share in their grief, in their pain, and their difficulty. Not just us, many around the world, and many within our own Dallas community. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants them patience during this difficult time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses the soul of our dear, dear Syed. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those whose lives are being impacted, all of those who are oppressed during these days and nights in Palestine, all of those who are going through massacre after massacre, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frees them from their difficulty and their pain, inshaAllah. Finally, last but not least, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the return of our beloved 12th Imam, bin Nabiyyi wa alih. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على بسم الله. Inshallah, we'll end with ziyarat.
Assalamu alayki ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alayki ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alayki ya khayra khalqillah. Assalamu alayki ya Muhammad ibn Abdullah khatam al-Nabiyyin. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله الآخر أحدي مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى السلام عليكم يا أئمة المسلمين، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.